Welcome to Fun and Fundraising, everybody. The podcast where we talk with people behind top nonprofit galas and signature fundraising events to showcase how they positively transform their communities. I'm your host, Rob Giardinelli, and today I am really excited to have Monica Clem on. And Monica is the Senior Director of Development for the Memorial Park Conservancy. And they have a wonderful alfresco event called the Park Ball each year. And I'm really excited to talk with that about her today. Memorial Park is one of Houston's most beloved, wonderful, and majestic green spaces. So it really is a great organization to learn how to, effectively engage and utilize your community in a wonderful space that brings people together. So with that, Monica, welcome, and I'm so excited to have you on as a guest today.
Rob, thank you so much for having me today. I'm excited to talk about the park, of course, and even more excited to talk about our park ball because it is pretty unique in Houston for what we're able to do for our largest fundraising event of the year.
I can't wait to chat more about it. But before we do that, let's talk a little bit about the park first. So tell us what the mission of Memorial Park Conservancy is.
Of course. So Memorial Park Conservancy's mission is to preserve, restore, and enhance Memorial Park for all Houstonians today and in the future. Many people don't realize how large Memorial Park is. Memorial Park itself is 1,500 acres, which, fun fact, is more than double the size of Central Park in New York. The Conservancy, yeah, a lot of people
Wow.
don't realize that. You think of Central Park and you see these, you see these sweeping views of the park, but Memorial Park is twice that size. So the Conservancy actually operates 1,100 of the 1,500 acres. What we don't operate is the golf course, which is a city golf course. And of course, we do not operate the Arboretum. That is a separate nonprofit organization. But the rest of the 1,100 acres we operate. And we're actually at the tail end of celebrating our centennial. So Memorial Park has been around for 100 years. And it really is sort of just this jewel in the middle of our city. So our job is to make it beautiful, accessible, and really come up with a slate of engaging programming and events to make sure all Houstonians feel welcome at Memorial Park.
Well, the fact that it is twice the size of Central Park really is astounding. It's not surprising because Houston geographically is a pretty large city. You know, they're kind of a little bit compact there on the island of Manhattan. So but I love that mission and I love how you talk about, because the one thing I have always found about Houston whenever I go there is it is an incredibly welcoming city. And basically everything you described about the mission of Memorial Park Conservancy describes Houston to a T, that it's welcoming for all Houstonians and people beyond. I've been there several times. It's a wonderful and beautiful space. And I know you've done various development roles, throughout your career. Talk a little bit about how you got initially involved with the Memorial Park Conservancy.
Absolutely. So before I started working for Memorial Park Conservancy, I had been in the Houston nonprofit world for about 15, 17 years. I've been in the Houston nonprofit world now for about 20. And I primarily was in the education space. So I was in higher education, I was in private high school education, and it's one of those happenstance things. Somebody that I worked with was friends with our current VP, Holly Clements, and I was looking for a change, ready to do something else in the nonprofit space, and connected us, and that's how it happened. But my family and I are regular users of the park. When my son was born, we would drop off my daughter at school in the morning and we would go do the 3-mile loop every day as I pushed him in the stroller. So it really is a wonderful space. And when the opportunity came to be able to work for the park as the park was getting ready to celebrate its centennial, really looking at these major improvements that have happened in the park over the last 5 years, I really jumped at the chance to become a part of the team and really lead the development team into this next, space that we were looking to move into.
That's amazing. And then, and the next century, to boot on top of
Yes.
that. So, I do have one follow-up question on that because, the education space and education fundraising is very different than kind of, I will say, the rest of the nonprofit space that's much more either cultural or community or civic oriented.
Mhm.
What was the biggest adjustment you had to make kind of from a development perspective as you switched from the education space into a more commercial, let's just say, nonprofit?
Absolutely. That is a really great question because there was definitely a learning curve. For education, you have people that have these deep ties to their alma mater. So they're either alums of the school that you are working for or they're parents of the school that you're working for. So that is a much different connection. And one that is very natural for people. So as a development officer, it is easy to pull on those heartstrings to say, hey, can you please help us raise money for scholarship because you want to give other people the opportunity that you were given, or as a parent, you want to give these kids and these students the opportunity that your child had. So that is a really easy sell, if you will, in the education space. In working for Memorial Park Conservancy, there still is that tie, but you know that people who love the park truly love the park because they have other things that they support. They probably support their own alma mater, they support their children's school, but to them, the park makes such a difference in their lives and in the lives of the community that they really elect to support it. So to me, that was a learning curve and a shock to say, look, these people, out of all the things they can support, they truly value the park so much that they're putting their money where their mouth is.
I'm glad you brought that up, and that actually is the perfect segue into my next question. You kind of tied about on about it about how you do the 3 mile loop, with your
Mhm.
child in the stroller and all that. But what makes you passionate about green spaces and conservation in particular?
Another wonderful question. I think we all in Houston, where we really are in this concrete jungle, we all should be passionate about parks and green space. It's good for our health, not just our physical health, for our mental health. You want to get out there and just get some fresh air. We are inside all day. During the summers, obviously, anybody who lives in Houston or really in Texas tries to stay out of the outdoors as much as possible. So it really is, it makes you feel different to go out there, to walk around the loop, even if you're not doing sort of organized exercising and you're not running the 3 mile loop or you're not training for the marathon, just to go out there and sit on the park bench and watch people go by, to go look at one of my favorite things to do in the park is there's a certain time at dusk when the armadillos come out. And I love armadillos. You're not obviously you don't touch them, but but they're to me so quintessentially Texas. But I love to see the armadillos. There's so many beautiful native plants and flowers and trees out there. So it just makes you feel better. It makes you feel lighter to be able to go out there. And as a parent, I want my child to spend as much time outside as they possibly can. So why not take advantage of this amazing space that we have in the middle of our city?
Absolutely. And that is interesting, because I live here in Austin, and in Austin,
Mhm.
the bats come out of the South Congress Bridge at sunset. So everyone, if you're in Houston and you want to see animals, armadillos will come out at Memorial Park at sunset. So I wonder what it
They
is with animals
will.
and dusk and twilight. That's just really interesting.
It is a great place. We have, with the building of Memorial Park, I wouldn't say the building of Memorial Park, but we've been doing major upgrades in the last 5 years. I know you're in Austin, but we've done some amazing things as part of our master plan. And then we have this 10-year plan, which is an accelerated portion of our master plan. So we've been able to really build these amazing things. We'll talk about it a little later, but the park ball is held in what we call the Clay Family Eastern Glades. And that was opened in the height of COVID, so in 2020. And it became this amazing refuge for people in Houston because you could only go outside.
Right.
And that opened in 2020. So we're about to hit our 5 year anniversary. But it's this amazing 100-acre space that we reactivated. Before, it was just 100 acres of forest. There really wasn't a place to go sit and have a picnic or rent a pavilion and have a birthday party there. there wasn't that opportunity. But Clay Family Eastern Glades was the first sort of domino that fell in that 10-year accelerated plan. And that plan was made, that acceleration of these particular projects was made possible by this amazing this amazing $70 million gift that the Kinder Foundation gave to the park. So it was just such a catalyst gift that we were able, with our project partners, Kinder Foundation, City of Houston, and Uptown Development Authority, we were able to say, okay, out of this master plan, what are the most important projects that we want to build in 10 years? So Clay Family Eastern Glades was one. The amazing Kinder Land Bridge and Sivia and Melvin Wolf Prairie, which people have just flocked to since we opened it back in 2022. And then we have one more project that's slated to open by 2028, which is called Memorial Groves. So these three projects will reactivate, at the end of the day, 300 acres of the park that make it usable to the public, and not just sort of urban forest, but usable areas that you can come to and utilize.
That is absolutely amazing. And actually, I'm glad you brought up Clay Forest Eastern Glades, because this is actually probably a really good point to segue into the park ball itself. And one of the things about, that is obviously it's an outdoor space. So that's one of the things. I love a good al fresco event. There really is, there's a special, I don't know, it's really nice to kind of be tied to the earth as opposed to being indoors. And that's one of the things I think makes the park ball so special, is that it is held outdoors. So talk a little bit though about the benefits and challenge that come with hosting your signature fundraising event outdoors.
Absolutely. And anybody who is in development and has had to deal with an outdoor event, knows sort of the joys, like the highs and the lows of doing outdoor events. But for us, that really is, if you work at a university or you work at a school, you have places to have events. You have a gym, you have an auditorium, you have, different things. That gym, that auditorium for us is the park. We don't have other spaces that are large enough to be able to hold a 500, 800 person event. And again, when you are a supporter of the park, you're a supporter of the park because you like to use the park. You like to be in the park. We've had, before the Clay Family Eastern Glades open, the park ball was, held in a couple of different places. During COVID, it was actually held virtually. So we knew that once Clay Family Eastern Glades was open and ready to hold events like this, that this is where we had to have it, good, bad, or indifferent. And you take the good with the bad. So the very first year that we did it in the Clay Family Eastern Glades, we did have a backup. We did put a deposit down on a hotel that was downtown as a backup because of weather. We did not want, this was a particularly large event. Our chairs wanted it to be between 500 and 800 people. And really, we didn't want to build the infrastructure needed to put a tent out there for 800 people. We just didn't want to do that. So we did have a backup just in case. We were so thankful that the weather turned out to be perfect. It was actually a little bit chilly. And again, those are the unknowns. So that particular year, it was chilly. The following year, it was even more chilly. This past year, it was humid and it was warm. So those are the things that you have to deal with. Thankfully, knock on wood, we've not dealt with rain, but we do make sure to work with our partners at the City of Houston that do have the ability to monitor weather at a higher level than, us just looking at the Weather Channel, and we keep in contact with them. So if we see that something is going to come up, we are able to pivot. But because of the structure of the park ball and how long setup takes, we have to just go with it because we are setting up a huge tent. And if it's going to rain, well, then that means that we have to set up a walkway tent from the parking lot all the way into the tent to get you into what we call our central lawn where we have our event. And it's rain or shine really at this point, unless there is dangerous lightning or winds that the tent can't sustain. But we do work with our vendors to make sure, okay, what is the rating of your tent if there are winds? So we are very particular about the vendors that we work with so they can work within our parameters.
I'm really glad that you brought up not just the plan A, but you also brought up the plan B. and the intricacies that go into that. So really important, really smart things that I think most people don't think of. And it's one of the reasons why we talk about these types of things. But the fact that people get out of their car and they walk in a tented corridor to get to the tent itself during the rain, it gives another layer that the guests feel like they're being taken care of. And the rain and the gloom of the rain goes away because they're feeling treated like like royalty from the second they arrive, rain or shine. I just think that's amazing.
Absolutely, you need to do it when you have people that are giving at such a high level to support the park. Again, this is our largest fundraising event. You want to make sure you don't want to go overboard where they feel, oh, you're wasting, you're spending too much money on infrastructure. You don't need to do that. There's a fine line, right, Rob? You want to make sure that they feel taken
Absolutely.
care of, but not overdone. Especially in a park. We're not in a high rise hotel where you're looking out at the city. We're in a park, and they love the park for a reason. But things, when you're looking at the intricacies of planning an event outdoors, you want to make sure that, even though we encourage people not to wear heels, that if we think it's going to rain, or if it's been rainy for the week, we have to put down a floor. We know that's expensive, but we know that that's the cost of doing business. We don't want people, for a couple of reasons. We don't want them to be walking through the park and feel like their shoes are getting muddy. But at the same time, it also protects the park, because if you have 500 people walking on wet grass, it tears it up, and then that's money that we have to pay at the end of the day to make sure things get replanted, and then our park ops team have to come in there and sort of fix the I wouldn't call it damage because it's not intentional, but fix the damage that has been done by all of your vendors coming in to set up a tent, 500 people walking on wet grass. So that's why we want to make sure that we put in those details from the beginning. That way, if we feel that we know it's going to rain 2 days before the event and the tent is already up, it's going to be impossible to get a floor in. So we just know that that's part of our budget, and we need to put a floor in no matter what.
That's amazing. And
Mm-hmm.
what I love about that is it's not overboard, but at the same time, it is extremely thoughtful.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Because there's going to be a cost. If you don't lay a floor down, the grass is going to be torn up because it's wet, and it's going to be a cost anyway. So
Exactly.
there's a almost proactive thoughtfulness, which is really, I think, which is why, the park ball is such a beloved event, is the fine details are taken care of, but like you said, you don't go overboard with them.
And one of the things that we do that I know a lot of nonprofits do it, but again, we are outside in the park. People love the park. They want to be part of the park as, in this event. We do a clear top tent, which you're able to see, when it's a beautiful clear night, you're able to see the moon, you're able to see the stars. But not this past year, but the year before, so 2022, we were able to actually truly encompass the nature of the park within the tent, and trees were inside the tent. Trees that were actually a part of the park had not grown tall enough that we couldn't put the tent over them. So we used it as part of our decor. So when you walk in to the clear top tent, you see this line of two lines of six trees on either side, and we made that part of our decor. You don't need much more decor. Of course, you have some beautiful things on the table, but when you have these beautiful oak trees that are under the tent and they are in the ground and they are real, it kind of took people's breath away.
Absolutely. And what that does, it's people, especially post-COVID, they're more, where is my money going? And I can't think
Absolutely.
of a more fun way to bring in, you're literally a park, to literally bring in elements of the space into the event. I just think that is, again, that goes into that thoughtfulness that's been an underlying current of our conversation to date, and it really makes people stop, think, and realize, wow, that this is really cool that they were this thoughtful to kind of bring the elements of the actual park into the event, even though it's tenting, you've got the whole space and it's clear and you can see the sky. Those thoughtful details, I mean, you can tell, that this is why this is such a beloved event in Houston.
Yes, and obviously we do have vendors, and we have a wonderful. We use the events company here in Houston, Richard Flowers and his team, and they really work with us. But one of the things that they work with us on is, they put together the beautiful florals and things like that. But we have a lot of native plants at the Conservancy that our greenhouse team grows in-house. So we grow over 25,000 local native plants in our greenhouse on site at Memorial Park. So for our events, what we do, so if you're talking about stage decor, we work with our greenhouse team and Richard Flowers' team to figure out what we could put around the stage that is native. What can we pull from our greenhouse and put in their beautiful vessels so people know that we are using what's in the park. For the park ball particularly, we do have, actual florals in the middle of our tables. We do another event called State of the Park, where it's kind of it's a lunch, but it's an update kind of thing, a little more business like. But our centerpieces come from our greenhouse, and we use those and we put those in the middle of the table. We put those on the stage. So we definitely do that with the park ball. But we of course incorporate other beautiful florals as well. But for us, that's a plus that we can go in and talk to our greenhouse supervisor and say, okay, here's the event. What do you have? What beautiful grasses? What beautiful other plants and flowers do you have that we can use? And again, be thoughtful about it so people know that we're not spending extra money and we are utilizing what we are blessed to have in the middle of the park.
Absolutely. And I think that all those things that you stated, we've talked about quite a few of them. That's why this event has had such a devoted following for many years.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to ask you, what is the first thing you would recommend to a person or an organization to create a devoted following for their annual gala or signature fundraiser?
I think you have to find, depending on what your organization is, you really have to look for those people that are so devoted and really do care about your mission. That is what keeps people coming back day after day. So once you know whatever that mission is, whether it's education, whether it's food security, whatever it is, who are those people that are closest to you that truly believe in your mission? And whatever you need, if you called on them, they would come running. So make sure that you have whatever that, you don't necessarily have to be as themey as I think we all used to be very themey in galas, especially across Houston. Houston loves a good gala theme.
They love their fun in Houston.
Yes, we really do. But depending on your organization, you don't have to be that themey. What is the message that you want to get across that evening to your constituency? And how can you bring people that are involved with your organization in to sort of tell those stories? To us, that's what we really find impactful, especially at the park ball. So who are those people that use the park and can say the park has made an impact on my life for XYZ? Whether it's you use it to train for the marathon, or you had a heart attack and you began to exercise after that because that was doctor's orders, or again, you're a mom that brings her kid to the park every day to go in the stroller. What is it that people love to do about the park, and how can you get them to give your guests that firsthand knowledge of why they love the park and why these guests should support the park?
What I love about that answer is, because I think, it is important to have a laser focus on your mission and, for a nonprofit to be laser focused on that and, get the word out about why it's important. And I think green spaces are probably of all the genres of nonprofit fundraising probably do this the best. You can connect to people in various ways in various aspects of their lives. It's different than a cancer nonprofit or a children's nonprofit where it's going to be focused on a specific thing. People utilize a green space for so many different reasons. And that's what I loved about that answer, was you just showed the range of how or why people could be tied to your organization.
It means the park means so much, so many different things to so many different people at different points in their life. So, they may have grown up going to Memorial Park when they were a kid. Then as they got older, they became an athlete and they ran there. And then after they got married and they got even older, they're retired now, and them and their spouse or their partner walk around the park every day. So again, we sort of move with our supporters through the different time periods of their life, which I love. I love to hear some of our older supporters who said, back in the 30s, I was coming to the park when I was a kid with my parents, and that brings so much joy to me to come to the park. And now I come with my grandkids. And so I really do. Again, as we mentioned at the beginning of the podcast, why people have such a deep feeling for the park because it has followed them throughout their lives.
Absolutely. And I want to go back to something you were talking about a little bit more, just about, utilizing your organization effectively. And one critical element of that with any successful fundraiser is having a good relationship with your event chairs. So talk a little bit about the importance of how, the org how the organization works
Mhm.
effectively with the event chairs to really put out these fantastic events that Memorial Park Conservancy does every year.
Of course, it is paramount to have a good relationship with your chair, no matter what organization you work for, no matter what your mission is. And we've all dealt with different kinds of chairs. And sometimes you have the chairs that really just want to put their names on things, and they trust the organization to put on an event. And sometimes you have chairs that want to be in the wonderful nitty gritty of a gala, and they want to come to every meeting. They want to approve everything. I've worked with chairs that run the gamut. But what is the thread that brings them all together or connects them all is that they care about the event itself, and they want to do everything in their power to make sure the event is successful. So if you don't have that really positive working relationship with your chair, it just makes everything you do as an organization a little more difficult. When you have a chair that really supports and knows and can trust that the organization is doing everything that it should be doing to make the event successful, it just makes things run so smoothly. When you're sticking to timelines, you are doing what you're telling the chairs that you are doing, you are following up, you are making sure that they know what their action items are. They are seeing that you as an organization are completing your action items. It gives them the confidence that, hey, this organization, they got it. I know that they have the best interest of the park in mind. And of course, these people, as anybody who does these events knows, a lot of these people are names in their particular communities. They have name recognition, and they want to make sure within their particular community that their name is on it and it looks good. They are reaching out to their own group of personal friends saying, support this event. I believe in this event and this organization so much. I am asking you to support it. So they want to make sure that people come and they feel like they've been treated to a wonderful evening. They are able to get the gist of what the organization is about and why they should support it. So it's important for the organization, we as the organization, to put on a great event and make sure that the chair feels that these people many of them who are new to the organization, know what we've done, know what we're doing, and how they can get involved past the park ball.
So I'm glad that you brought that up, and that's actually the perfect segue into the next thing that I wanted to talk about, and that is, you had mentioned the chairs will bring their own crew every year, and that's what makes a great event. Some people come one year, some people come for 10, but there's always going to be an ebb and a flow as to who attends. But how do you, as a development executive, utilize the park ball to further connect and engage with major donors that you are already there that you're familiar with, but also those prospective ones that the chairs are going to bring in each year?
Absolutely. We really are very thoughtful about after the fact and even before the park ball even happens, when we see that our chairs are bringing in these new people that have not been exposed to the park before. We have a wonderful development operations department at the Conservancy. So as table names are coming in, as guest names are coming in, my team is going through those, and they are in all of the available software. They are screening these people to see what kind of potential they have. Do they normally give to green spaces, or are they just coming because their friend is sharing gala? So we really do a lot of work on the front end before the event even happens to say, okay, you know what? Rob is actually a great prospect because he's given to green spaces in the past. Whether it's green spaces in Houston or maybe green spaces in Colorado or other places. So we make sure then we deploy somebody on the development team, whether it's myself or our VP or our CEO, to make sure to make contact with that person at the park ball. So prior to the event, we do a wonderful sort of a large meeting with our upper level senior leadership, the development team to say, look, here are the people, because my development operations person has put together a wonderful briefing document. Here are the people that we need to make sure somebody talks to today. Wonderful, at the park ball. So we all sort of have our marching orders that way, and we're prepared with information. And obviously we do use our chairs to say, hey, is anybody on your list somebody that you really think can be good potential for the park in the future? So they're very generous about saying, you know what, yeah, that person is really going to be good. Oh, that person just wants to come to the event and support. So, no need to go in, any further with them. After the park ball happens, we have a debrief, and we say, okay, did everybody talk to the people that they were supposed to talk to? Who do we think needs further follow-up? Do they need a park tour with the CEO? Do they need a phone call from one of our major gift officers? So we are very intentional and really do create the to-dos before the park ball and the to-dos after the park ball to keep them engaged as much as possible, and hope that they become recurring park ball guests, regardless of who the chairs are.
I love how you frame that answer, because really what you highlighted there is, and for anyone who has ever done a marketing video or anything like that, you've got pre-production, actual production, and post-event production. And that's exactly what Monica described here. Is they do the legwork in the beginning, they know who they're going to talk to during, and then they talk about afterwards, how those things went and how they can improve for next year. And that's what a smart, and again, thoughtful, that's the underlying word today,
Mm-hmm.
thoughtful way that you all are, you all do that. And, I want to turn to, you had mentioned earlier that people in Houston love a good theme and they love fun.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not that there's no theme, but there is an attire this year. And it's called
Yes.
Boots and Blazers, and it's no ties. And that's what I love about green space events. Is most green space events are going to generally are going to be, tie free, unless it's kind of like a polo type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But, I love that relaxed, the relaxed nature of park events. And there's several really great ones throughout Texas. Memorial Park definitely at the top of the list. How does the more relaxed dress code create a more fun experience for the event guests and donors?
I think it really just gives people the freedom to be comfortable, but to also be original. You see some wonderful, beautiful, outfits coming down we sort of have an entranceway, a natural entranceway through the park. And there are times that you see men in these really bright blazers and bright slacks, and they just have a, wonderful white button up on underneath, and their partner's coordinating in a beautiful floral dress, but they have sneakers on. I think it just lets people, think about, what do I love about the park? Let me go to the store or look in my closet, and what is going to complement what is already there in the park. You don't want to, overdo it and come with obviously and it wouldn't be very comfortable to come in a ball gown, but we do have beautiful flowy dresses that come in. We have people have come when it was a chillier evening. They've come in jeans and a sort of puffer vest, and that's what was comfortable to them. And that was great. They let their table know ahead of time that they were going to come in a definitely more relaxed attire, and people felt great, and they had a wonderful time because they weren't cold. They weren't trying to, try to run to their car to get a pashmina because they were chilly. So I think it gives people the opportunity to celebrate spring before maybe it has really officially arrived in Houston, because we're talking about mid-April, and depending on the timing, it could be before Easter, it could be after Easter. So it lets us, we celebrate the beauty that is the park. Though, people are able to wear dresses and attire that is wildflower-esque, because you see that in the park. So I love to be able to give people the opportunity to really flex their couture muscles and find something that's really comfortable to them but complements the park. And then again, wearing sneakers is the easiest thing to do, because there's nothing worse than walking through any sort of grass area and your heels sinking in, and then you get mud all over your heels, and nobody wants that. So I think it's a fantastic way to feel comfortable and relaxed. And it's just, there's no pretense. You can just come and have fun.
Absolutely. And the underlying theme of what you said there is the guests complement the landscape. They're there to be a part of the landscape. And that's what I loved about your answer with the dresses and the pops of color and all those things. They lend to the nature of those are colors you would see in nature. Like, and I remember I saw
Exactly.
several blazers that were kind of this beautiful, gorgeous pink that men were wearing. And pink is a
Yes.
great color on anybody,
Mhm.
everybody. So, to just keep those things in mind. And it's a really good way to just kind of, blend everyone's individual aesthetics in so that they're fun and welcoming, which Houston is very well known for being fun and welcoming. And speaking of fun and welcoming, so talk about what guests can expect to experience at this year's Park Ball as you kick off the 101st year of the park in the next century.
Yes, they can expect to always see beautiful nature. Unfortunately, the trees have grown a little too tall, so we can't get them inside of the tent. So we've actually had to move. We've had to just shift the tent a little, but you still, as you walk in, you have this beautiful long walk in from the parking lot all the way till until the end of what we call the central lawn. So you still see all of that beautiful nature. So you're still going to have that wonderful walkway through. You're still going to get the beautiful clear top tent. So when the sun does set, you can see the stars, you can see the moon. We have this wonderful at sort of the end. If you're kind of thinking of the setup as sort of a long, narrow setup, at the end of the walkway, you have the tent, and at the end of the walkway, we have this wonderful space called Bowden Terrace. And Bowden Terrace overlooks Pines Lake. So it's a wonderful place where we do pre-event drinks out there, and you get to see the sunset. You see these beautiful native birds and the bullfrogs and the ducks that are in the lake. So it's a wonderful, again, natural place to be, and it doesn't cost us anything, which is fantastic. So people will be able to to really again enjoy nature. They're going to be treated to a wonderful meal from City Kitchen. Jim Ewing and his wonderful people at City Kitchen always manage to put a fantastic menu together. And again, it's a little bit difficult when you're outside because what kind of food do you prepare? You don't want things that have to come out piping hot when you have, when you have 50 tables that you have to get to. But somehow his people and his team are able to do it. And we always have a wonderful, meal. We have, which people love at galas, we have a fairly short program because people want to come, they want to talk, they want to see people that maybe they haven't seen throughout Houston sort of gala season. So you're gonna have just a wonderful laid back experience, and then again you're gonna see us celebrate the park. You're gonna see us celebrate what's happened in the last 100 years, what we have planned for, as much as we can, but plan for the next 100. And really just celebrate what the park and its supporters have been able to accomplish over the last, fiscal year.
That it sounds like an amazing night and an amazingly fun night. And Richard Flowers is best in class. City Kitchen is best in class. So anyone looking to go to an event where it's going to be great decor, great food, great people in a great environment, this is definitely an event you need to check out. And I know we're coming up on time here, Monica, but I wanted to end with one final question that I always like to ask guests. And that is, what is a piece of advice you would give to someone looking to plan their first gala?
Absolutely. Gosh, I have to think back almost 20 years to think of my first gala. But I think a couple of main pieces of advice is always be open to ideas, whether they're your chair's ideas, whether there's somebody else in your organization's ideas. No idea is a bad one. It may not work for the particular event that you are planning, but always be open to those different ideas. So don't be too quick to say no to things before you sort of do your due diligence to see if it could actually work for the event, the space, the organization, the mission. So keep an open mind about that. And you have to make sure you're thinking of the guest and the end user experience. So think about it every step of the way from the guest's perspective. I think that's really important. I think sometimes we get too much into what we are thinking needs to happen as an organization, and we forget about, like we've talked about earlier, those little details that make donors feel taken care of, and they are thoughtful, and they're going to remember the next time. And then I think finally, it's okay to make mistakes. Mistakes are going to happen. There's really nothing you can do about it. Something is always going to go wrong. But as long as, what we like to say, as long as you can keep that in the back of the house and the people in the front of the house don't see it, and you can sort of fix that problem or that issue before it hits the front of the house, then it's okay. It doesn't matter. So don't be afraid to make mistakes. And if something does happen, it's fixable. Just try to fix it before it hits the front of the house.
And I'm really glad you ended with that, because the one question I get that is kind of like an Achilles heel question for me is, what do I do to plan the perfect event? And the answer is that there's no such thing. And I'm really glad you brought up something always happens. It just does. So once you get the perfection out of your mind, it allows you to kind of roll with whatever comes after a little bit more easily, because you're getting that out of that mode. And I think that's a mic drop moment of brilliant advice, Monica. So again, thank you so much. And congratulations on the first 100 and the start of the second 100 years of this wonderful organization and this amazing event. Thank you for joining us.
Rob, thank you so much for having us. And I appreciate it and hope this podcast will help some people as they go through the year and plan their galas.
Absolutely. And I know it will. And the Park Ball 2025, benefiting the Memorial Park Conservancy, will be held on April 10th, 2025 at Memorial Park Conservancy's Clay Family Eastern Glades in Houston, Texas. For more information, please visit memorialparkconservancy.org. And that will do it for this episode of Fun and Fundraising. I'm your host, Rob Giardinelli, reminding you to keep it fun, keep it interesting, and your guests will have a great time. Have a great day, everyone, and take care.